Let's talk about the 2025 East-West Shrine Bowl. If you did not know, I had the awesome opportunity to be a part of the media side of things in terms of the Shrine Bowl, and that would not be possible if it wasn't for you guys. That was my first ever media event. I got to be at the practice facility. I got to do media interviews and be on the field for the actual game. It gave me a perspective to one of these all-star events after the college football season that I've never been able to do, but I've always dreamed of having the opportunity to actually attend. So if you're a returning viewer to Rush the Field or you follow me on TikTok or Instagram, thank you so much. And if you're new here, welcome to Rush the Field. Truly, I only ask one simple question at the start of every single one of my videos, which would just be, give me an opportunity to talk football with you. Whether it's a like, a comment, subscribe, anything across the board would mean the world to me. I love doing content for you guys. I love making these videos. It is my passion project, and any opportunity you guys give me to talk football with you is truly appreciated. But enough of the sappy stuff. I want to talk about the winners of the Shrine Bowl because I have an extensive list below of all the guys that I thought actually rose their draft stock after the Shrine Bowl. But I do want to make one warning. I wasn't in the interview room talking with the players. I can only have so much perspective of who these players are as people. I got to interview some guys. Some of them were injured and they couldn't actually play. Guys like Phil Maffa and Jason Marshall. But overall, I had a great experience being able to talk with some of these guys, and they were great interviews. But let's talk about their actual practices and a little bit about the game, but I think the practices showed me the most about these players overall. You can't talk about winners of the Shrine Bowl without mentioning Kobe Bryant. Every single time on the practice field, he was making plays, whether it was in drills or whether it was in simulated runs. The dude had just been balling out all practice. The first thing people want to talk about with him is his size. He's 6 foot, 169 pounds. That's tiny for a corner, but he was just making plays. And at the end of the day, where he's going to get drafted, it's just going to be worth it. A lot of people want to make the comparison to Emmanuel Forbes, the Washington corner, the guy that went in the first round who was undersized. The context there was in the first round. Kobe Bryant's not going to end up going in the first round. And that's going to be fine because for an undersized corner, you could take a swing on a guy like that who I think is going to have some sort of value at the NFL level. I mean, we're talking about a dude that is just your stereotypical corner, super confident, will talk after every single rep, and the big key there is he backs it up. Outside of the trash talk, the skill that popped up during the drills time and time again was the closing speed. Whether it was just with the other cornerbacks or in the simulated runs, the closing speed was just ridiculous. Anytime you thought you had an ounce of separation, it would be instantly closed as soon as the ball was in the air. Listen, man, I'm just going to be a big Kobe Bryant guy throughout this entire draft process. Another defensive back that I thought had a really good run of practices was Jabbar Muhammad out of Oregon. At only 5'9", 190 pounds, the dude was flying all over the field. Though slightly undersized, I think his athleticism popped overall, especially during the practice drills, and I think his run support was something that kind of surprised me just knowing what his size was. In practices, you're not able to fully hit running backs, but you could tell where his instincts were, and most of the time, they were right. And I understand when everyone's talking about defensive backs at the Shrine Bowl, especially this year, they want to talk about Shiloh Sanders, especially with the tweets from NFL Rookie Watch or Dove Kleinman talking about, oh, his draft stock is just plummeted. Let's just be honest here, Shiloh Sanders, his draft stock wasn't that high to begin with. I'm not coming from a place to bash him. I just didn't have high expectations to begin with. I think he's a run support safety with decent to below average coverage skills. But I do understand the last name does carry a lot of weight, especially within the media. But let's talk about some front seven guys because I thought this group was insane to watch. First guy I gotta mention, Tyler Batty, an outside linebacker from BYU. One of the biggest personalities in this entire group. I thought his performance on one-on-ones was really impressive, and I thought his ability to swipe away hands was even more impressive. I could see this dude being a very solid rotational piece at the next level. I do apologize because I'm going to butcher his last name. I've tried to look up how to say it. Ahmed Hassanian, Boise State outside linebacker. First of all, one of the craziest but most impressive stories in all of college football. I got to sit down with a Mountain West scout, and he told me the story of Ahmed, and it's truly inspirational. I believe he came from Egypt, came to the US, barely played a lick of football, and now he's one of the top prospects at the Shrine Bowl. I understand that's a very high-level way of putting it. Please Google it for details because I think it's truly inspirational. But for a guy that was known for a lot of power, I thought he showed a lot of finesse throughout practice, and even the scout was surprised by that. This is a dude that I think could still grow, and I think he's got the archetype of a great pass rusher at the next level. I could see a lot of value in a later round pick. Jackson Woodard out of UNLV, I thought was a great guy to be able to talk to. He was actually my first ever interview. And one of the questions I asked him was, what was one thing out of practice that you want people to take away as the biggest quality or trait? And the first thing he told me was communication, being able to communicate clearly to the rest of the defense, as that was his role at UNLV. I think any linebacker that had to face on a daily basis the Brennan Marion go-go offense, their eyes are going to be more refined than most other linebackers. The two defensive linemen that I think rose their stock the most, potentially into those top 2 rounds, was Jordan Phillips out of Maryland and CJ West out of Indiana. These two, no matter who you put in front of them, were causing problem after problem for the interior offensive line. There was so much buzz about the people around them. There were so many notes being taken every single time they were stepping up to the plate because it was just pure dominance. Another inside linebacker that had a lot of buzz around him outside of Jackson Woodard was Chris Paul out of Ole Miss. And to be honest, there was a lot of Mississippi love across the board. I think JJ Peggs, their defensive tackle, and also Antoine Wells is someone that I'll discuss later. But Chris Paul, I think, was the best out of the 3. I fully understand the middle linebacker position doesn't have the positional value as it used to, but this is someone that if you get in a later round, potentially even in the 3rd, he could sneak into the 2nd, I think would be very valuable to pull into your program. He was just someone that all the tape that you saw at Ole Miss, which was a quick processor, sound tackler, good in coverage, all showed in the practice reps. Because the overall goal of this isn't to just find new information through practice reps. If you do that, you're going to die on some big hills. What you want to be able to do is look at the film and see if it translates over into practice. Because at the end of the day, you're more trying to confirm what their archetype is and their play style and where are the areas that they can improve upon. In terms of offensive linemen, there's a couple guys I could call out, but I want to center on one man. A Division III school, Middlebury, never heard of it before, Thomas Perry was a standout. If you're on Twitter a bunch, or specifically NFL Draft Twitter, you may have seen the clip where a random Division III school player was able to stump an SEC player. That was Thomas Perry. And part of my problem with people that just post those 1 reps, they don't get to see the rest of them. And he was dominant for the entirety of practice. He's the epitome of maximizing his opportunity. It's not a situation of, oh, if you're talented, someone will find you. No, it's more of, if you're talented, you get an opportunity and you maximize it like Thomas did, now you're in some serious draft talks. And that's not to say he wasn't going to get drafted if he didn't play in the Shrine Bowl, but his stock definitely rose after it. But let's flip to the offensive side of the ball with the running back position. 2 guys I want to shout out. Corey Kiner from Cincinnati. Corey was someone that told me, you know, I always want to get the 3 to 4 yard carry over just a 60-yard touchdown and trying to go for the home run. I'm more than fine to just chip away at a defense. And that's how he plays. He's a very powerful running back. Though the numbers may not pop off the screen like, you know, I don't know, an Ollie Gordon from last year or maybe a Taj Brooks from this year, but Corey, I could argue, was one of the best running backs. I think a top 2 running back in the Shrine Bowl. But the other guy also won offensive MVP in the actual game, and he only had 13 carries last year. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt from Arizona was just a baller. And obviously there's just the standard red flags. He's an undersized running back. He's been playing since 2019 in college. He got injured last year, yada, yada, yada. I'm talking about how they played during practice, and the dude's got some serious burst. At 5'8", 197, I will say it's undersized. I'm not saying he should be a 2nd round pick, but he's definitely someone that I've gone back and wanted to watch more of his film because he showed out that much in practice. And in terms of tight ends, the one that has been one of my favorite tight ends in a stacked class has been Rivaldo Fairweather. He is your typical receiving tight end. I thought his routes were super crisp. I liked his size. I liked his mobility against linebackers and being able to find the soft spots and zones. And especially at Auburn, he was put around all across that offense. And I think he's going to be someone that, if he goes to the right system and the more creative offensive coaches at the NFL level, he's going to find a spot at the NFL. And lastly, let's talk about the position that I think was so stacked. I got about 5 wide receivers I want to shout out. Keandre Lambert-Smith, the former Michigan State player turned Auburn, was making some incredible catches. I think he's a super raw prospect, but if he's able to refine some things specifically with his routes and some of his footwork, I think he could be a special player. Ricky White out of UNLV, I think, was the most smooth player in terms of the wide receiver room, and I think he was the best wide receiver in practice. It was just time and time again, Ricky White's getting open. It never felt too difficult for him. It never felt jerky. It always felt something fluid and smooth, but it was always getting open. And just based on talking with some coaches around the practice facility, he was someone that just continuously popped up on everybody's notes, and there's a lot of eyes on what Ricky White could be at the next level. Antwan Wells was also someone that just made a ton of plays. I think he's someone that a lot of people, especially on draft Twitter, are intrigued what he could potentially be at the next level. We're just talking about a plus athlete, someone that just makes a ton of plays, and especially if he refines some of the things of his game, I think you have a special talent there. Especially knowing, even though he's like 6 foot, he was one of the most physical receivers there. I just hope the injuries didn't catch up to him and we get a healthy Antwan Wells, especially going into the NFL, because I did not forget how special of a player he is. A guy that I did not know going into the Shrine Bowl, I now know his name and I need to watch his film, is Kanata Mumfield from Pittsburgh. The first practice, man, every single time, whether accurate or inaccurate, he was coming down with that football in bounds. When talking with coaches and with scouts around me, he popped off the screen for a lot of people. He was within their notes and he was just going to be someone that everyone was going to go back and rewatch to see if they missed something, because what he was showing in practice was remarkable. And I got to shout out at least one Colorado player. Will Shepard was, I think, the best wide receiver out of the 3 that were there. Though you may see a ton of practice clips from like LaJohntay West or Jimmy Horn Jr. and their routes were super crisp, the hands are a problem. And if you want to take the upside of an undersized player who does have really crisp routes, I mean, I'm not going to doubt that. Some of the best route runners in practice, it's just a hands problem. It's always been a hands problem for Jimmy and LaJohntay. I like the size more from Will Shepard. The fluidity was really there. I thought he made things look a little effortless, and he had one of the craziest one-hand catches in all of practice. I understand a one-time catch or one rep isn't going to make the end-all be-all of an evaluation, but you got to shout out something cool when you see it. That's about 17 or 18 players we just discussed. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's video. I hope you guys like this stuff. You know, I'm going to start doing the rankings of my NFL draft prospects. I've already started to build them out, and they will get their own deep dives. I know this was very high level, but these are names here, guys, that, yeah, they're not going to be in the top 20 picks of the NFL draft. But if you're a fan of a team, take a moment, go look at these guys, go watch them. These are the guys that you may find in the 4th round that could be your starter level players, potentially Hall of Famers. I mean, Brock Purdy was at the Shrine Bowl, and you may think, oh, Tegan, you didn't mention any of the quarterbacks. To be honest, I don't mean any disrespect to guys like Brady Cook, Max Brosmer, Cam Miller, Kyle McCord, or Peyton Thorne. Kyle McCord was one that I was intrigued by, but he didn't really wow me in practice. His arm talent was okay. He was really forcing balls into some really tight windows, which either was a little dicey or worked in his favor. I just wasn't wowed enough to make a shout out of the quarterback position. I know Shador was there just for interviews, but it wasn't anything too crazy from the quarterback position overall. But with that being said, you guys will get a video with a scheme focus, hopefully by mid-February. And at the end of February, we're really kicking off like the combine videos, the NFL draft. I may even throw in a mock draft video just to try to get y'all 3 this month. But with that in mind, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch today's video, and I will see you next time.